I've got to tip my hat to the rider just sitting on the pack there, Nuno Bico. He's done a phenomenal job because he really was cut up with that accident. It was pilot error going around the corner as we switched away from Port Wollonga on the opening lap. But the race doctors also did a pretty amazing job just to patch him up and keep him in the race.
Well, it's one thing for him to get through the rest of the stage, and another thing, he's going to have a very restless night indeed. And then a pretty tough last day out. And he'll get back to the hotel and get all those wounds properly cleaned. That's probably the worst part of crashing. Trying to get everything cleaned out and bandaged up and redressed again. You just go through that pain all over again.
And he's got quite a hole in his left elbow, which we saw on camera.
Yeah, that's the big problem, isn't it? When you get injuries like that, when you roll over in the night, it keeps waking you up and it makes it even more difficult to try and recover.
You can't get any rest, and infection is the big danger as well, so that's why they have to really re-clean and disinfect everything, and that is the really painful part.
So the leaders are saying farewell to McLaren Vale, and the peloton are on the same road trying to chase them down. This was the start point a couple of hours ago. It's Bono and Bevan. The larger the pacemakers and the chasers, and they've got it to 2:17 now. That should be enough to see the leaders get just into Wollonga, but will it be enough to get them to the top of the climb? Now there's a big question. The climb itself is 3 kilometres.
And it starts at 25.4 kilometres to go. And so they're 6 kilometres, the leading group of riders, away from starting the climb. And they're still holding on to 2 minutes and a quarter. And I think, in fact, that the main field have backed off a fraction here because it's still Paddy Bevan on the front doing the bulk of that pacemaking.
And his job will be done when he gets to Wollonga. That's it. So we've only got 6 kilometres to go. Then it'll be up to the team to see what they can do for Richie Porte. Just right at the back of these boys with the Bora on their shirts is their man. You see Daniel Oss. I was just looking for Jay McCarthy. He's in this group somewhere, and he's the one they're trying to guide into a winning position on the climb. Third overall, and in theory the next candidate for the race lead. Jack Dempster here doing very well. Madsvers from Denmark rides for the Katusha Alpecin team from Switzerland. Fumi Beppu, the Japanese rider on Trek Segafredo, followed by Delamini, the man from Cape Town, South Africa. Scott Bowden, local boy. And the man from Portugal, all bandaged up, and his new role as the Invisible Man.
You can see the inspired pedalling style of these riders now. Mads Verst-Smit on the far side already. Just even though he's only 24 years of age, he's actually already been a world champion on 2 occasions in the individual time trial, and one of those, in fact, was at the junior level and one at the under-23 level.
Nice views. They were all shrouded in mist this morning when their first riders appeared here. All blown away. Nice and sunny now, and a warm but not too hot. Crucial difference from the last 2 days. 30 kilometres out for the leaders. So let's take you through the action of the day. The 5th day of racing. Liam Bignell, the Minister of Tourism and of Sport, getting them underway from his constituency of McLaren Vale, bound for Wollonga Hill. Over 151.5 kilometres. The attack started straight away until they got a lead group of 7.
Yes, it didn't take very long for the breakaway to go clear, but one man had a mishap on the first lap, and that was Nuno Bico of Team Movistar.
Cut to pieces, the doctor would come along and patch him up. There we are. It looked as though he was going to go back into the bunch or even out of the race, but no, this man is still very much in.
Medical staff doing a fantastic job not only of patching him up, but keeping him in the bike race and in the leading breakaway. The breakaway got a maximum advantage of just inside of 5 minutes, but then the main field reacted behind to keep them pegged.
Through the sprint point at Snapper Point, 63 kilometres in, Beppu was the man to take out the small prize, as well as the 5 points and the 3-second bonus, ahead of Zach Dempster and Nicholas Dalingini. That's really the story of the day, because now they're still clear as we continue in a straight line for the Old Wollonga Hill, which is the high spot in the ridge ahead of the riders right now.
Well, they're about 4 kilometres now away from the start of the climb proper. Or in fact, they might be just a little bit closer, 3 kilometres.
Yes, this road goes straight into town. No left or right, which means the peloton will see this breakaway on this long straight road. When we're in the distance there, the peloton will be about here.
Well, they're still holding on to that just outside of 2 minutes. It's going to be a question of survival, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see an acceleration coming from Thomas de Gendt once we get to the slopes of this climb, because he knows this climb exceptionally well. It was on this climb last year that he was able to get himself some points to eventually win the King of the Mountains competition in the Santos Tour Down Under.
Well, that's exactly, of course, what Lamini is trying to do for himself this time around in his very first World Tour race.
But what will happen now is they'll start to lose huge chunks of time as we get the lead-out trains getting organised to position the leaders nicely at the front of the pack once we start Wollonga Hill. It's a climb of 3.5 kilometres, an average gradient of 7.1%, but down towards the bottom there is a point where it kicks up to 12.2%.
Emirates continuing to set the rhythm out there. A bit of a spoiler if De Gendt does go and snatch those points, because he can't win this competition. He hasn't scored at all this year, and there's still a very good chance for Lamini. 16 points would mathematically still lose it, but he'd be in a very strong position. There's the breakaway names for you. The crowd are enjoying the warm sunshine, but not sweltering heat today. You see the strength of the wind from the flag there. This is not a favourable wind either just now, which is not helping the breakaway's progress, and it doesn't get favourable on the climb either. Lamini so close to getting onto the climb now, and the gap is 2 minutes. Desperate moments. You can wipe out 2 minutes on the climb of 3 kilometres as well.
Well, you've been up this climb plenty of times, Robbie. Which is the hardest part of the climb?
Well, as you just alluded to before, Paul, that first piece at 12%. So you just come out of Wollonga Village, it starts to rise up, but then there's a definite kick. And it goes for a few hundred metres at that really steep incline. And that's the part that puts you in the red zone, gets your heart rate right up to its limit, fills the legs with lactic acid. Doesn't get a lot easier after that. It does ease off, but it doesn't feel like it's gotten any easier because you've put so much into that first effort. And that's a part where Richie Porte hopes to be going really hard to put everybody on their limit. On the limit, a rider over on the left, that is not part of the race. It's not someone being lapped. He just thought, I'll get myself on TV, attacking the break. But that's not fair because you haven't done the other 100 kilometres, mate.
At 42 kilometres an hour.
Yes. Same straightaway now for the peloton. Now this is the calm before the storm. They've locked off the front. They hope that they've got the climbers in the right position. They're going to run like this to the climb, and then this race will explode. Drop down to 33 kilometres an hour, but the wind is now unfavourable. It's a crosswind. Inside 2 minutes. Very nervous moments.
Just a quick glimpse there. They're picking up that very strong headwind, and that was reflected in the speed of Richie Porte, 34.5 kilometres an hour. But he's a rider who holds the Strava
give me-
segment record on the slopes of this climate. I mean, I can't believe it, Phil. That's 60 minutes and 39 seconds. And that was in this race back in 2016.
They're in the approach to Wollonga itself now, on our last visit through the feeding zone here. De Gent is the man on the front. It looks as though the riders are unloading the water bottles because of the weight. Lamini is the rider on the left in the green helmet, the most to gain. If he can win this, I think he can look forward to the final jersey tomorrow. It'll be close though, he can still be beaten. Port's the man who could take it off him.
Well, the difference between them on the road is actually around about 1.3 kilometres, and that's a minute and 53 seconds. Thomas de Gent just adding a few words of encouragement there to the young South African, I noted. The young South African not in 4th, 5th position there in the white jersey with the blue spots on. He's the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. He won every King of the Mountain point maximum available over the first 3 days of this race.
Interestingly, the yellow jerseys of the Lotto Jumbo team have come forward. All that is assuredly for Robert Hessink. He must have told the boys he feels good, put him in the right position. The turquoise riders in the centre here, that is for Sanchez, and he's just on the tail of this group. It's going to be like a lead out for the last sprint here, and somebody from Movistar decided to go behind the bushes.
Well,
he's back.
He was trying to ride to the front, and it was just,
he did there.
Well, he ran out of road actually, and the safest thing he could do was jump across to the bicycle path.
I think it was Carlos Barbaro who shot off the road there.
It's Marcel Seberg on the left, and he's bringing Lars back. He is now their go-to GC man. Here's that incident, and over the little traffic island, bit of bike path separating, behind the trees, back across the gravel, and back into the bunch.
It all looks so easy when these guys do it. Now, Lars Bak, I'd kind of forgotten, but in the early part of his career, he's the rider in second position of the two riders with the red jerseys. He actually also won the Tour de l'Avenir, which is the race for the hopefuls in France.
Over the last few years, really become a faithful domestique of Andre Greipel, chasing down breakaways all over the world, all year long. Today, he gets given a bit of responsibility to bring in a result for the Lotto Soudal team. Of course, they've had great success. Greipel winning a stage. He's 17th in Santos Tour Down Under history. But Lars Bak trying to get a top 10 and some important World Tour points for the team in this first race of the year.
Well, this time the barriers will be opened up. I can see the white jersey there too of Egan Bernal in a perfect position. His Sky Boys also in white have got him where they want him. He's going to try and go with the moves as they come. Now, the first climb up isn't normally decisive, but the strong men will appear.
Also just spotted the tallest man in the peloton, Stan Vandenberg, the Belgian from AG2R, the brown top jersey. He's protecting Pierre Latour and Michael Cherel. His teammates both up there at just 14 seconds on general classification. Got over the top of Norton Summit comfortably yesterday. He said they're actually both going really well, and we're hoping one of them can stay in the top 10.
Well, the break is imploded now because I can hear from race radio that there's riders being dropped from the front group.
Well, for a lot of these riders, this is their psychological switching off, and you can see already there's a number of riders being dropped from the leading group of 7. And what a nice little acceleration here by Nicolas Lamini.
And the ones who can follow, Thomas de Gent and Scott Bowden, the Aussie mountain biker come road rider. Well, Zach Dempster we just saw going out the back. No big surprise. Huge day off the front yesterday. Zach Dempster and Delamini flick of the elbow. Come and take over the pacemaking. Easier said than done, Nicholas. Scott Bowden swinging across to the back.
I think he's actually got these boys on the limits right now. De Gent is doing his little bit here. He's got to get up the points and get those 16 points. He can still be beaten, but I don't think it'll work out if he can get over the top first.
Well, he's still got a couple of kilometres to go to the top of this climb. I hope he's not listening to the commentary, but look at the change in the wattage now as Thomas de Gent starts to pump it up to 440, 400 watts. I mean, I can hardly do 400 watts these days.
And look at the time gap. 57 seconds the spread across the race on the climb first time up. The tempo riding by the strong men behind.
it has been quite an acceleration early on the climb by the riders from Bahrain Merida in service of the Izagirre brothers. And we saw John Izagirre yesterday in that five-man group at the front with Sagan Port in the final yesterday.
Boiro on the front here. Still setting the pace, but for how much longer can he do this? It's a fine piece of riding by Manuela Boiro. And Pozzovivo, the man he's possibly working for, 347 watts for him.
Well, you know, a couple of days ago they told us they didn't know why they were riding on the front. Now, today, they certainly know why they're riding on the front. They're riding to toughen this race up and set something up for either one of the Izagirre brothers or Domenico Pozzovivo.
And at the moment, staying away from the front and in the middle of the bunch and into this headwind on the climb, Peter Sagan, number 11 in the ochre jersey, right in the middle. Next to him, Jay McCarthy.
Nothing unusual about that with Peter Sagan. It's always a suck-it-and-see attitude at this early part. Let's see if he has to chase over the top to stay with the leaders next time around, though.
Well, if that time gap is correct at 24 seconds, I'm not sure that these three riders are actually going to survive to the top of the climb. No. We're about 1.5 kilometres to go.
This is the spot that Richie Port always has attacked on. Every time he's won, the 4 times he's been here, it's been through this section that he starts to go. His riders around 1.5 kilometres to go, as Paul said, and Dlamini will be starting to get a little bit nervous. Richie Port, number 1, just comfortable, a little bit out of the saddle, just watching and waiting.
And there, he's a long way down that line too, and that might be the saving grace for those three up front just now. They haven't hit out, flat out on the climb. That'll come round in a final dash up to the finishing line.
The red jersey on the left-hand side, that's Fumiyuki Beppu, who was in the breakaway. He's already been picked up by the front end of the main field.
Let's have a look. The camera taking us. There's the main highway on the right. This is all being enacted just below that highway.
Well, actually, that gap for me is a little more than 20-something seconds, and I think, in fact, just looking at where they are now, Robbie, I think they will, in fact, just survive over the top, but not for much longer after that.
I'm calling that about a minute, that gap, considering the speed they're riding here. We saw that gap from the air. They're going to comfortably stay in front for this KOM. Well, I think they'll be picked up before we come back around through McLaren Flat the next time, and everything will be back together when we start to climb the final time. This is one of the steepest parts.
50 seconds, the race have just said, to that gap, so I guess that's about a minute, Rob.
Close enough.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Now look at this now. Only De Gent is left. Scott Bowden has been unhitched, and quickly too. These two are going for it now. Well, one thing we've learnt this week, this is a talented young man, Nicholas Dlamini. He's no flash in the pan whatsoever.
Hails from Cape Town in South Africa, and he clocks in at a mere 22 years of age. And I think the way he's ridden throughout the whole of this week, we'll be talking about this young man for a couple of years to come.
I think we definitely will. He's had a plan every day he's gone out to get in the break, and he's executed every single time. And he's got a beautiful, smooth pedalling style. And when he's gone for these King of the Mountain sprints, he's looked completely in control. He'll be very happy about this situation. He's got the ideal man with him, Thomas De Gent. He'll have no interest in the KOM.
And look at the face of Dlamini. Determined, not suffering. He probably is internally, but he's not worried at all. He's going to hang on, and he's going to hopefully out-sprint De Gent.
Well, how about this for a coincidence? The man who is leading the leader of the King of the Mountains competition was the winner of the King of the Mountains competition last year. That'll be a sight for sore eyes for them. A kilometre to go to the finish line.
And Dlamini just having a look over his shoulder back to try and gauge the gap, see that everything's safe, and he can just keep cruising, as it were, well, in inverted commas, in the wheel of Thomas De Gent.
The peloton still under the escort of Bahrain Merida. Still no move here. This is pretty much like it was yesterday into Uradla. 40 of them eventually coming home. But it won't be their way today, guaranteed.
Well, this is a spot where Richie Port has been completely unleashed over the last couple of years and already going off the front and exploding the last of the riders able to follow him. He'll be having another good look, familiarising himself with the climb yet again, and having a good look at the wind, seeing how much headwind there is, where there's an opportunity he can go, and nobody's going to get a direct sit behind him.
Well, talking to the club cyclists, they were really saying it was a very, very hard climb for them today, head and cross. Dlamini, was that an acceleration? Too many spectators. can't see a thing. They're under 1 kilometre to go. No doubt the two front runners will make it, this time anyway. They're still a bit twitchy. Lamini's been absolutely fantastic on this race.
He's showing no fear at all of this climb of Wollonga Hill, and nearly all of the teams at some time in the few days leading up to the Santos Tour Down Under came out here to scope this circuit because they realised just how important it was.
I can't believe that Thomas de Gendt will spoil the party here, because he has no points in the King of the Mountains this year, and he knows how important it is for the man from Dimension Data.
On the other hand, Delmini only needs to score some points. He doesn't even have to win to wrap up this competition. Maybe de Gendt thinks, well, just as a matter of pride, just to show myself, I might take it. But
there's a lot of points, Rob. There's plenty more points to come. There's 32 points up here today alone, so he won't wrap it up on this climb.
Now, he was first across the line because de Gendt's gone on now. Delmini has sat up immediately. He's gone over the line. And de Gendt pushes on. Delmini, he says, I have had enough. But if he's taken 4 points there, he'll now have had a 32-point lead on Richie Porte. Just to get confirmation across the King of the Mountain point, it was under that big blue Subaru banner.
But there are 16 points more for the next lap.
If Richie wins it, he then 16 behind
if he scores
again.
now, really. He needs to score now.
I think he comes to the front.
I think he's got a little bit more interest in winning the bike race overall at this point, but we have seen him on a couple of occasions come out of the pack for the minor placings on the King of the Mountains competition.
Also haven't yet seen Scott Borden wrapped up by the bunch, but I would imagine he is already back and through the back of the peloton. Don't know if he's still in between.
And that would be great news for Lamini, that's for sure. These boys have come up sensibly, but boy, they're going to rip round this final lap, that's for sure. And every man for himself next time up the hill.
Richie Porte just out of the seat. Not really coming through to get points, or
is he?
Towards the front? No. I think so.
Somewhere boys are now staring it up on the left here.
With this wind, riders be very aware across the top. They will get hit with a crosswind across the top of this ridge. They've got 5 or 6 kilometres across the top of this range before they drop down that very fast descent. And look how narrow the road is here with all the soigneurs trying to give off the drinks at the top. So positioning still vital at this point in the race as well. It gets very windy up here.
So I think that was a very favourable climb for the South African, and I think he can be crowned the King of the Mountains tomorrow. Porte may have got 2 points, but that wouldn't be enough. Now the last lap will be a ripper. Well, here is Scott Bowden here now as he's pulled back into the field. The gap is 1:15, they're saying. And, of course, this is now based on one leader. Thomas de Gendt is going for gold.
And he's the kind of guy, you know, there's the catch there for Lamini, the South African rider, who we think got maximum points over the top of the climb. But Thomas de Gendt, he's just such a clever bike rider. He now knows that he's got a little bit of energy left in the tank, and he will take advantage of this flat part of the course and the descent down the other side, which he will touch speeds of over 100 kilometres an hour. But look at the way all of the riders are looking over their shoulders, looking left and right to see and make sure that they've got their team leaders in their slipstream.
Lotto Jumbo here, great faith. Now they come over the first climb in Robert Hessink. So they're prepared to continue to work well. Looks like Mitch Docker on the in the pink jersey here coming through as well. There's a lot of riders survive that climb, and a lot of riders are going to take a great deal of confidence from the first time up the hill.
There's also a lot of shouting going on because of the wind.
There is. That wind is really buffeting now, and it could decide this race. I wonder how Richie Porte really feels. There's no indication there, you know.
Well, we'll know in about 20 kilometres time.
Yeah, we certainly will. There's the lone leader now in the break the whole race, and the minute the flag dropped. But this is Thomas de Gendt. He's a rider who can go the distance. He can climb mountains. And he's nudging it up again. They came to within 50 seconds. He's taken it out to 73.
Well, it's a pretty tall ask, really, if we're being sensible about this, because a minute and 15 seconds, once we come down off the descent back onto the road into Wollonga, we'll see a massively different approach to the start of the climb than we did last lap.
The speed will really start to pick up. You see the team formation now. Lotto Jumbo. This is Martin Rijnants, the Belgian, on the front, riding for George Bennett in third position, and Robert Geesink just behind him. If Thomas de Gendt can get himself across the top, maintain this gap, get onto the fast descent, he'll then turn and pick up a tailwind through the vineyards. I still don't think he'll make it all the way to the finish, but he will make them fight to bring him back. That's Andre Greipel, his teammate, moving himself up to the front. Maybe going to ask the question, why chasing so hard, fellas?
And there is the race leader, Peter Sagan, the man of mystery.
Alongside him, his teammate there, number 17, Jay McCarthy. So far, they're playing a perfect game.
Interestingly, keeping well back from the lead group just now. Out of the chase, saving their energy. They'll be in a much closer alignment with the leaders as they come on that ramp at the bottom in Wollonga village itself. 1 minute 9 seconds. Pulled it back a little bit. 19 kilometres to ride. Lotto Jumbo taken control now. 2 possible strike men in their team. Well, the driving since we came up the hill now has been done by Lotto Jumbo, and it's for their George Bennett and indeed for Robert Geesink, and they're just behind the boys in yellow. Sagan is in the middle along with Jay McCarthy, but a little bit down the bunch just now. Number 1 there is the defending champion overall, Richie Porte. Never been beaten on the climb, by the way, for 4 years. There's the result of the climb. They gave it to de Gendt, but Lamini will still be the King of the Mountains elect with that second place.
Well, I have a feeling that this year they might have actually given the King of the Mountains point actually on the finish line. And that's why Lamini, he might have misunderstood the rules.
Quite possibly, because you see the blue arch, but underneath it, no line, just the big crown painted, the crown on Wollonga Hill. So Lamini might have been a little bit confused there. Also thought that Thomas de Gendt might have just wanted to prove a point, and he knew he wasn't going to do any disservice to Lamini because he was still going to win the competition.
Well, I've got to be honest, I thought it was on the finishing line. So
now, previously, it's always been just before the corner, just before you turn towards the left. Anyway, doesn't make any change. Thomas again has 16 points and Lamini has 12.
To bring him a total of 48 to the nearest to him, Richie Porte. But I think Richie got a couple of points as he went through that finish line. So, but it's done for. And a very, very good piece of fine riding by the South African. 54 seconds. This is where we were when on the way up towards the finishing line. They brought him back into range again. Really, it's all down to the Dutch team here, giving their best shots when they can.
If you look now, just behind the yellow and black of Mitchelton Scott, you'll spot the ochre jersey. He's just next to Alex Edmondson in the Aussie champ jersey. Peter Sagan, he moved himself up from mid-bunch, closer to the front. As it's a bit windy up here and they're about to hit that very fast descent, it's time to start riding position.
Yes, it's Matty Heyman there trying to get his men into position. I suspect that's probably for Cam Meyer.
Well, as Robbie said just a little bit early, Cam Meyer really has ridden under the radar so far, but he's still in exactly the same time as a bunch of riders, just 14 seconds behind Peter Sagan. But Peter Sagan he's also a rider who has that incredible knack of being able to ride comfortably in the main field. And he'll be saving an awful lot of energy and taking the risk to ride a little bit further back from the front 10 or 15 places. It's just the fact that he seems to have that instinct of when he needs to move to the front.
It's all about saving as much as possible, but for this man, it's expending all of it. And I just had a glimpse there a moment ago at his chain where it is on the cassette at the back, and it was munching the big gears. He was riding at least 53.12. Now, here we see a replay of the KOM. Lamini on the front, Thomas de Gendt. He had something to say. Delamini looking back, he's like, fine, don't worry about it, all is good.
I wonder.
We'll notice here, as they come around to the KOM, there's no line across the road.
No, it's on the line. Well, I think they both thought it was there, you know.
Delamini thought it was there. He sat up. Thomas again thought, well, I've let you go across it. Now I'm going to push on.
Yeah.
But neither of them knew.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
you're the only one that knew,
right.
Phil.
Yeah.
You could have been wearing the polka dot
I wasn't
jersey.
much help to the riders then, was I? Oh, well, that's rather sad in many ways, because, in fact, De Gendt was playing the absolute gentleman there, and it was a different place. Anyway, the race goes on. We know where the finishing line is, that's for sure. 15.8 kilometres still to go.
That bunch has been whittled down quite a lot. So it's just about half of the original peloton. I saw a few riders in the background trying to make their way back onto this peloton through the team vehicles. And they're not far away now from that 100-kilometre-an-hour descent down what they call Penny's Hill. That's where Thomas De Gendt is right now, Aero Tuck, sitting out on the top tube. Let's get a look at that speed, already pushing up 90 and above.
32 degrees Celsius.
Hit 90 already and hasn't even hit the fastest part of this descent. It's right down on the lowest slope of this descent that you hit your top speed. I'd love to see another motorbike shot in this position, like a teardrop and dropping like a stone.
Well, it was through this area where Matthew Lloyd disappeared through the trees a few years ago now. Actually suffered from sunstroke.
The 10-year anniversary of Lloydie going down.
Is it 10 years?
2008.
Yeah.
And I actually saw him put something on Twitter yesterday, or was it Facebook? He said, I hope the boys are well hydrated and keep their heads cool enough on the descent where I went down 10 years ago.
My goodness me. Time flies. Well, he was flying at the time, come to think of it.
It's 86 kilometres an hour, and that's on board with Rowan Dennis, sitting in the main field somewhere. 90, just touching 90.
Wow. Need the brakes when they get down towards the main road.
Well, look at the difference there. Martin Vanhout's down in the Aero Tuck. Andre Greipel, significantly heavier, just sitting up, catching more breeze, but still doing the same speed.
No, the fact that Greipel is up here indicates just how hard was that climb, in all fairness to Andre. But it wasn't such a hard climb for a lot of riders still here, but next time will be different.
De Gendt now at the bottom of that descent. The peloton now on the fastest part. Look how much the gap has shrunk. Giving just 24 seconds. This is Peter Sagan. He loves an Aero Tuck himself. Leading the peloton.
Don't forget, gentlemen, I'm here.
Put himself back in position. Uncanny radar system that Peter Sagan has. He knows where he has to be when it's about to go off.
That's a pretty savage position, Robbie.
Right, getting it right down low. Jay McCarthy, fourth wheel, doing the same. And Sagan, I think he just likes to see what sort of speed he can hit. It's not about really leading or showing he's in control. He just likes to go as fast as possible and not be amongst the bunch and have to hit his brakes and just let it flow.
20 seconds the gap. The peloton, the chase is now full on. It's downhill to the main road back into Wollonga. Well, the peloton, common sense again, but they're only 200 metres behind the lone leader, so that was one big descent.
Well, 18 seconds, that's not very much more than about 150 metres advantage for Thomas De Gendt, so you can see the little organisation, well, maybe 200 metres, the organisation coming from BMC. It'll be a completely different approach to the line this time. And, of course, the start of the climb once they get into Wollonga village.
Well, De Gendt knows they're coming, so his race is over now. He's got to go right round the course again, of course, so he gets to start tomorrow. He made a good effort there. It was a race-long breakaway attempt as well. The lone figure of Thomas De Gendt now as he races back towards the finishing line. Everybody thinking internally now and want to see their strong men shoot off the front, because at the top of the hill is the finish, and if the time gaps are correct, then the race will be decided today.
Well, we talked just a few kilometres ago about riders who'd drawn their own finish line at the bottom of the climb. It's over to the next teammates to set the tempo on the first time up Willunga Hill. Drag their team leaders all the way around, keep them protected, watching out for the crosswinds, not get surprised. So the next set of riders draw their own finish line at the bottom of the climb the final time. And then it's really over to the super domestiques. Guys we see wind the pace up, and Richie Porte, you'll be relying on guys like Rowan Dennis, and after yesterday seeing Simon Gerrans taking control of Norton Summit, maybe hoping Gerrans can put everybody in trouble enough for Richie Porte to go on the attack.
3 hours 25 minutes. Now there are 33 riders down there, split by only 14 seconds. That's the spread for 33 men. The rest of the race is out of the hunt, but one of those 33 could be the winner tomorrow now.
Well, it looks like Thomas de Gent on the right-hand side there has raised the white flag. He's going to rejoin the rest of his compatriots once he gets into the main field, and they will know once again that he's a strong man when it goes to launching breakaways.
He is, but when the bunch wants you, the bunch gets you. And you can see how that crosswind is affecting. They're all over on the right-hand side of the road. That staggered formation. The only place to move up is on the left in the wind. That's where Lotto Jumbo are coming past now.
Inside, 10 kilometres to go. The wind is not favourable. This very compact bunch here, 33 of them can win this race because there's a spread of 14 seconds over that number of riders. They've just picked up Thomas de Gent about half a kilometre back. Somewhere down there is the man who will win today.
And we're now getting an attack from the EF Drepak squad in pink, really winding things up. Brendan Canty is their man. Simon Clark also with them. That was Will Clark really trying to put the herd on, getting themselves to the front to take this turn. Now the turn back into more of a headwind. Nothing enough to split the bunch.
There's an awful lot of riders going round for the last descent, and it's literally at the end of this straight. And look at the crosswind they're facing now.
Well, that wind is a lot more on the side this time round. They've had a lot of head crosswind through here, but it's blowing really almost straight across them at this time of day now. So this is a great opportunity and well seen by EF Drepak.
Very good decision. Look at the splits being caused in the bunch. If the wind gets in amongst those bike wheels, it can cause endless damage. There's de Gent still trying to hang on as long as he can. He's just been picked up and he's at the back of the race now.
Well, Paul, the riders at the back, they'll be looking forward, seeing things stretching out in front of them. It's a very nervous moment, and you know it's about to string out, and you're about to have to hit it as hard as you can. And look at the trouble being had by the BMC rider in fifth wheel.
Everybody's gritting their teeth. They're pinned, being pushed right across into the gutter. There's no wheel to take an advantage now as the wind hits you on the side. This race can split at the blink of an eyelid right now.
I'm just trying to look down the line of those riders and see just exactly where Richie Porte is, because Team BMC are looking a little bit disorganised here, and that's why one rider's just sat up. He's swinging across the road, looking over his shoulder. He's looking to try and figure out where Richie Porte is.
That's Tom Burley, and he was the man having so much trouble. He's just pulled out. He has literally exploded, leaving a gap, and things are really starting to open up. Here's Richie Porte. He's riding in the gravel behind Jay McCarthy.
Exactly.
This is a dangerous moment.
But he's hanging on. He really is. A full stretch there, Richie Porte. The gap is opening off Jay McCarthy's wheel. This is a great piece of pacemaking at the front, and they started too far back. Look at Peter Sagan as he chases the wheels through.
Well, Peter Sagan. No trouble for Sagan. He just picks up, puts the power down, moves up. Richie Porte says, that's my man. I've got to go with these guys. He's now behind Daniel Oss and getting himself back out of danger.
Yeah, but where's his team? They should be around him at a moment like this. They should have realised. We were both looking at the flags a few moments ago.
Yeah. They have really been caught out. And they've still got a man working on the front.
I was rather suspect the team was up for it today. I thought Richie Porte didn't have a good climb just last time up. Now we'll find out.
Well, I've just seen back in the background, I see Richie Port. He's about 12th wheel. Saw him just give a little shake of the head. That was a really nasty moment for Richie Port. Cost him some energy, but he's back in control at the moment. I think the best thing he can do is stick close to Peter Sagan and the Bora team.
Well, there is Sagan just over to the right-hand side, riding behind his teammate Jay McCarthy. But look at the organisation of Team Bora Hansgrohe in the turquoise jerseys. They are much more organised at this point than BMC have been.
Yeah. Richie Port was just in front of Bora. They're now coming up on his left-hand side. So Richie, he's okay again, even though he's got no teammates around him. And I can't spot Simon Gerrans. That's a vicious crosswind.
That's a vicious crosswind, and that's a big split, and they may not repair that damage before they start the climb. Number 17, Jay McCarthy, being followed by his team captain, number 11, Peter Sagan. Sagan said, "I'll help Jay McCarthy win this race if I can." We'll see how it goes, he says. It's going pretty well. Danilo Weiss swings off the front of the race now. That's Simon Clark, who's gone to set up the pacemaking.
Yeah, I think they've gone too far out from the finish, because there are so many teams that have got multiple riders represented. But you just look at those flags over to the left-hand side there. They are ripping right across his rubber. They're actually not too far away from getting into the village of Wollonga, and then the crosswinds won't be quite so savage, being broken up by the houses.
It'll start to get better for them. They got that uphill drag they're now on, but this certainly will have knocked out a few wannabe or pretenders for the GC. There's a lot of guys missing out of here who were at 14 seconds, and they could see the race riding completely away from them. They're going to have to work so hard to get back, they just won't have the legs on the climb.
Clarkey sits on the front for Education First Drapac, and it looks to me as though Sagan is feeling very, very comfortable just now as he follows his team, and particularly Jay McCarthy, through the group. There's no tailwind at all on the hill today. They've had a real rough ride. Luis Leon Sanchez is here as well, and he, for me, is a big danger.
Well, it's done the damage, because from about half of the main field, we're only down now to about 35 riders in this leading group. And look at Daniel Osser sitting in the middle there in the black and turquoise jersey of Bora Hansgrohe. They've got a lot of riders still very much present, with Peter Sagan at the back of that line of his teammates in the ochre jersey.
Well, the team that did all the damage was EF Drapac, and I just saw Mitch Docker drop out the back of this group. His work is done. So Will Clark, Mitch Docker, the big strong men for the Flatlands, did all the damage in the crosswind, and they've looked after Brendan Canty, who's had a fantastic, easy ride in the wheels, and he climbed so well yesterday. I think he's on for a big one today.
There's no giving away in that face of Peter Sagan. There are 38 riders in this group heading towards the start of the last climb of the day, and everybody just checking what's going on there. Daniel Oss looking to see where his team is. Lotto Jumbo very much a threat now. Jay McCartney, Luis Leon Sanchez, for me, are the big dangers.
On the far side, the rider we don't really know how he's going to handle in that white jersey, riding very comfortably in the crosswinds, the best young rider, Egan Bernal.
So a lot of the guys we've spoken about as favourites for this race, they have not been caught out by these crosswinds. A lot of riders making their way back onto the group now, but that's certainly cost them a lot of energy. And our big favourites, all at the front, Bernal, Richie Port, Peter Sagan, Jay McCarthy, Brendan Canty, I'm putting up there too after his performance yesterday, and Hirsink and George Bennett.
And Sanchez, just been brought right up by his team.
Just entering the village now of Wollonga, so a bit of respite from that crosswind. Now everybody taking a few extra deep breaths, getting ready for the climb. When they take that left-hand turn, that is really where the climb starts. It starts to drag up quite hard.
The actual climb is 3 kilometres. We are 5.6 from the finish. The team's getting themselves a little bit of semblance of order here, but those boys, as you say, Robbie, are coming back after those severe efforts. But Matthew Heyman's still here for Mitchelton. Drink being taken by Sagan. Now the nerves will be tingling now as they start to face up to the climb.
Well, this is it. This is that left-hand turn in town, and this is where the road first kicks up. It's not counted as part of the 3-kilometre climb, but it is a good 700-metre section that really does go uphill, and the riders will all tell you this is where the climb starts.
Now, who's going to be the first to try and draw the sting of the others?
Well, Phil, I know for a fact there'll be riders looking up and seeing that steep section and thinking, uh-oh, I'm done for, because so many riders already on their limit. But a guy like Richie Port, he actually got away with that quite well. He was isolated for a moment, but he came back with the Bora riders, And it's actually good for Richie Porte that everybody's approaching this final climb really at their limit. Jay McCarthy behind Richie Porte. Richie in the middle in the black and red, number 1.
Yeah, Jay McCartney still staying cool down there, number 17, just alongside Sagan. They've got the old 1-2 planned. They've worked it out because of the wind on the climb. An early attack is not going to work this year.
Well, this is Laurens de Vries, the Belgian from Astana, riding for Luis Leon Sanchez, trying to keep that pace high. Almost looking like he's going for the sprint in the final part of a stage, and for him, that's what it is. He'll get to this steep section, go as long and as hard as he can before he swings over. Behind him, Danilo Vis from BMC. They also want the climb to be as hard as possible, which suits Richie Porte. He looks back to check. Where's his teammate? Rowan Dennis on the right of picture.
Bit of a swing out from the back there by UAU, and in fact Bernal in the white jersey has marked every move so far. This is a move by Manuela Mori, who's come right up to the front.
Well, the UAE team, Emirates, really throwing it down this first steep part of the climb, handing off the bidon to Diego Ulissi, pouring it over, and pouring it on is Mori on the front.
Hats off to this UAE team this year. They have really come here to try and win this race.
Well, if we look back to past years, this is exactly the scenario that Richie Porte has always loved. That goes as hard as possible on the first part of the climb, gets everybody as close to their limit as possible, and then he can start to dissect them, to pull them apart. And Richie Porte, he's there in about 7th or 8th wheel,
and he's
just
still got
sizing them up.
Yeah, Dennis is with him as well. 2 riders in front of him. 2 previous winners of this race. Now the line is settling down, and still is Peter Sagan there, not looking stressed at all, and neither is Jay McCarthy. There's an awful lot of riders still believe they can win this stage and possibly the race itself.
Well, in 3rd position is the Colombian from Sky, Bernal. Behind him, one of the Izaguirre brothers, that's John Izaguirre. Daryl Impey, number 22. Peter Sagan there in picture. And we're looking further up. See George Bennett in about 12th wheel. And here's a little acceleration.
Another top winner there too, Slechta. Tom Hilter Slechta is here.
Rowan Dennis now goes to the front, keeps the pace up, and Bernal straight into the wheel. Robert Kiesink behind him. Richie Porte just hanging back a little bit, getting a bit more slipstream. It's a very strong headwind up the climb.
Just how impressive is this youngster on Team Sky? They've nailed a good one here. They've given him a long-term contract as well. Bernal, he's wearing the white jersey of best young rider, but he could convert that to an ochre jersey if he keeps riding like this.
Well, he has said he's really looking forward to this stage and a proper climb. He said it's still a pretty short climb, but I'm looking forward to something a little bit harder. Rowan Dennis looks back, assesses the damage. Robert Kiesink in the yellow and black in 3rd wheel. Always looks a bit ungainly, but make no mistake, He is going very, very well. Richie Porte just poking his nose out for a look.
But I still got the feeling, looking at Richie, he's waiting. He wouldn't have sent Rowan Dennis up here to set the pace if he was feeling rough.
McCarthy in the wheel of Porte, Brendan Canty behind him. I can't spot Sagan at the moment, but I'm sure there he is. He's about mid-pack and just a little gap starting to open up in front of him. Daryl Impey in front of Sagan. He's a long way back, but he'll certainly just ride his own pace, bottom to top, not try to follow accelerations, just limit the damage. There he is in the ochre jersey.
Gorka Izaguirre is 63, and Slechta, John Hilter Slechta, is there as well for Dimension Data.
But it's still Dennis out of the saddle, 490 watts peak as he went through that corner, and a lot of guys starting to look like they're in trouble now. And Richie Porte, he knows where he's got to go. And Sagan,
he's going. Sagan can't match this lifting of the speed here this time around. So the ochre jersey rather will have a new owner tonight, that's for sure. Daryl Impey is in front of him. He was 2 seconds behind him at the start.
Well, Peter Sagan, he said, I'm just going to go until I pop. I can't do much more than that. But we really are here for Jay McCarthy. He said it all week. True to his word. Bidon overboard, jersey open, and that is the end of the day for Peter Sagan. He will not lead tonight and win this Santos Tour Down Under.
So Sagan has left a vacancy for the race lead, but who's going to fill that very, very large shouldered jersey? There's still a lot of riders here watching and waiting. Rowan Dennis sets the pace at the front. Bernal looking to see what's going on. Hessing in 3rd place is there. And right behind him is Diego Ulissi.
We are now approaching the point where Richie Porte has attacked every time he's won. The last 4 years on this climb, it goes around to the left and it kicks up quite steep through the right-hand bend. Here he goes.
Well, you've got to do what has always been successful, the habit of a lifetime. Jay McCarthy knew he would attack at that point, and he's on him.
Well, this is tradition if there ever was one. 4 times he's done it.
My
the 5th
goodness.
time he's going again. Richie Porte, he sees McCarthy's with him. It's a matter of then when he decides to ease off and then hit him again. It's always the way he's done it. McCarthy looking fairly comfortable.
Well, Richie pumped out nearly 700 watts there to launch that attack. Hessing is out of it now. Bernal is coming back, the boy in the white jersey. This is all or nothing by Richie Porte. He won't be swinging over. He's got to do it. McCarthy checks who is coming up behind me. These two know each other's powers.
This is shadows of when Richie Porte rode the Colombian and now out of his wheel. He's doing it again. Richie Porte.
This is the second kick, the famous second kick of Richie Porte, and this one will kill off Jay McCarthy. Richie Porte, who crashed out of the Tour de France in July, has come back to the Santos Tour Down Under to do what he always does best, and that's win to the top of Wollonga Hill. If he does it, it's a 5th ever victory here.
Well, that is the mental boost that Richie Porte really needs to be able to make that second acceleration, see that gap opening and know this is it now, all the way to the line, open up this gap as much as possible. He's been the aggressor. He's gone in exactly the same place he's always gone. They all knew it. Tactic, no tactic, just go. If you can't follow, Richie Porte wins.
Now, to get the victory tomorrow, he needs 8 seconds on the line and win the stage with the bonus. These boys coming under 1 kilometre to go now, but the race is done. Who's going to catch Richie Porte, if indeed anyone?
Well, he's made the acceleration now. He's opened the gap. The question is, can anyone respond from behind? Anyone who didn't respond to the first acceleration, if they're able to cross that gap, Richie will be trying to look through the crowds to see if anybody's coming. And you can look at the difference from last year. This headwind is really affecting the tempo. There's Keesink, Pozzovivo just in front, a very large bunch trying to come back to them. And somewhere in between is Jay McCarthy and Bernal.
Well, the seconds will matter now for Richie Porte here as he gets into the crowds and the tree line once again. A familiar deja vu for the rider from BMC. Look at that crowd. They picked him out. He's just got the left flick. Don't look over your shoulder because every second will count. Yes, it's your 5th straight win in this hill race, but it's going to need a lead of 8 seconds after he hits the line. So we'll all count with him as he comes off that final bend. A massive crowd, and he comes up to the clock, grits his teeth. Now it's up to the Mr. Time himself. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we've cut away. I can't help you now.
That was Daryl Impey who was coming around the corner.
Well, Impey gets a bonus. He might get the lead.
Daryl Impey is going to be desperately close. He had 12 seconds over Richie Porte. He's given away 4 in bonuses. If he was inside that 8 seconds, and I think he may have been right on 8 seconds, and in Impey's favour, he's very fast. There's still bonuses tomorrow. Daryl Impey could be very close to an Oka jersey and pull off what could be an amazing win in the Santos Tour Down Under. Really, we need to go to the stopwatch, the timing results. There's Richie Porte, our winner.
Richie Porte has done all he can do, but the clock will decide who wears Oka tomorrow, and it'll be desperately close between Impey and Porte.
The timing system has Daryl Impey at 7 seconds, which by quick calculations will put Daryl Impey in the jersey by one single second.
1 single second. If the timing is correct on our computer, 1 second in favour of Impey, and it will be advantage Impey tomorrow around Adelaide. Well, what a race that was, and Richie Porte did all he could possibly do. He may have come up 1 second short. We'll find out. Still little bit, all these riders are coming in now. There's Slechter, the man that won this race a few years ago, as they continue to filter in off the climb. And I must say that he made his name in this race a few years ago when he